Welcome to Insight, everyone. I'm Nnamdi Odipo. This episode will skip between a conversation we started on cotton production in a previous episode and some fresh issues on preservation of cultural national assets. Well, for that, Elizabeth is on hand to give perspective to that issue. Lizzie?
This week we will focus on the gains of the museums and how we can ascribe significance to them.
Indeed. Let's get started. Well, I did mention in the previous episode that we will continue the conversation on cotton cultivation and expansion program, in Nigeria. We'll pick up right from where we left off last week. Only this time, my guest is Salman Abdullahi. He's a cotton farmer, producer, and processor. Welcome to Insight.
Thank you very much.
I will begin with a simple question on growth viability. I haven't been told that cotton can grow literally in any part of Nigeria. From your position as a cotton farmer with many years of experience, which is the most commercially cultivated species of cotton in Nigeria today?
Well, I would say all along, farmers have been suffering in the course of producing cotton because of the tired seed that has been used or being used over the years.
Okay.
But with the involvement of really CBN, there's tremendous growth in the sense that there's high yielding variety that is available and in commercial use from this year, 2021.
Okay.
Before, hardly can the farmer make up to 800 kg per hectare. But today, a farmer can get up to 3, 4, up to 5 tons per hectare. And we see a lot of potentials, and with the pricing also, farmers will really produce a lot of cotton this year.
Okay, you've just made allusions to the varieties, having varieties of seeds available now. I mean, for the farmer. I wanted you to speak specifically to the issue of, amongst all of these varieties and species, which is the most commercially cultivated species that you use for planting in Nigeria, the one that can literally grow in any part of Nigeria. Is there any like that?
There is imported seed.
Okay.
From an Indian farm called Mexico. It's an affiliate company with Monsanto of the United States of America. The name of the seed is Mexico Belgrade 2. We have the Institute of Agricultural Research have done a lot of research and experiment on the seed, and come to agree that it can be is viable and can be actually cultivated by at least 26 states of Nigeria. There are 36 states. Out of the 36 states, cotton can be grown in 26 states.
Wow, that's fascinating and intriguing. Something else, I had a rather intriguing conversation with the president of Nakotan, Dazachimogu, sometime last week on cotton. And I had a lot of good stories and just a little tiny, yet not insignificant bit on subsisting challenges. It will seem that with the Anchor Borrowers program and upgraded management practices in cotton production used by farmers like yourself, cultivation and production is on the right track. But I want you to tell me something about the market for produce and who are your immediate off-takers. Since cotton can be grown with success, is there a market, especially here in Nigeria, absorbing this increased production that we're talking about?
Well, cotton has a lot of potentials.
Very true.
The idea of producing cotton locally is to feed the local textile mills that are in operation, and with a lot of surplus to export in order to augment the foreign exchange earning of the nation. So I think for now, you see, around 1977 up to 80s and so on and so forth, Nigeria used to have over 184 textiles. Unfortunately today, due to several reasons, because most of the textile industries in Nigeria are owned by Asians and Chinese. Now, as a result of a lot of problems, which includes smuggling, huge smuggling, due to cheaper fabrics from the Asian countries, most of the textiles have to fold up because of high cost of production, e.g. the energy in particular, and competing issue is the smuggling. So that has left farmers with a lot of surplus to process and export, which is a good thing actually, because it gives the country very good earnings.
So the point is that if I get you correctly, we don't have enough off-takers for local production, yeah? Is that the point you're trying to make?
That's correct, because we have the potentials, but for now, no much off-takers actually.
Okay, very well. Let's go on to the issue of, talking about doing enough to capture or in capturing the gains in the current growth and expansion of cotton production in Nigeria. I'd like to ask you a question, your opinion actually on how we can leverage on this gain, this increased production to engender more participation or engender active value chain participation in Nigeria. How can we begin to achieve such results, taking advantage of the potential, massive potential of cotton that you've just talked about?
You see, that is the aim of the governor of CBN in engaging into this anchor borrowing, specifically on cotton, to boost production, and at some time to engage the tremendous generators that are available into operation, so that there will be a lot of employment generation. And most of the generators, as you may know, are built at rural areas which engage rural labor in order to curtail the urban rural migration. So again, the whole aim is to produce more than enough. There is tremendous surplus that can be exported. Nigerian cotton is generally liked by the Western world.
Okay.
Because Nigerian cotton is hand-picked, rain-fed, and whiter than other irrigated cotton, which is not as white as Nigerian cotton, actually.
Not even that of India?
Well, in India they have a lot of varieties. Irrigated, rain-fed, because they have almost similar climate to Nigeria. But there are other states in India where they grow cotton, but the like is not like ours, which is rain-fed and hand-picked. Some of their cotton is machine-picked.
Okay.
Because of the large volume of hectares that they cultivate. So, but you see, Nigerian cotton is almost similar to that of Arizona, of United States. As you may probably not be aware, that Egyptian cotton, which is one of the grade 1 cotton in the world, the originating seed came from Nigeria.
Okay,
but
that's interesting to know.
Of the care and assistance of government to the farmers, they are now they can produce high staple lengths, which we cannot, but we hope to get there.
Okay, so I mean, we've talked about India, and you even mentioned the US. I know India is the world's largest exporter of cotton yarns, while the US is the largest exporter of cotton itself. But tell me about the export procedure for cotton here in Nigeria. Well, we know it's a cash crop with growing comparative advantage for us as a country. How is the entire process being made easier for producers like yourself? I mean, the process of exporting cotton now.
You see, the procedure is very simple. There are machineries that are meant to process cotton meant for export. These are machineries that are purchased from the United States of America, and largely there are also others that are purchased from China. Well, those are smaller gineries. The bigger gineries, like that we own, can be exported, processed and exported. The quality is good, that can be exported any part of the world. Currently, I think Nigerian cotton goes to Pakistan,
okay,
Bangladesh,
okay,
even at one time Thailand, and Tunisia. They all like Nigerian cotton, and Nigerian cotton is exported there.
Which agency of government handles the issue of quality and ensures quality for export? Is that part of what Nexim does?
That is unfortunately lacking. But we hope it will be in good shape in the next
okay
1 or 2 years.
Okay. I mean, India we know, the US we know. Interestingly, we have two sister West African countries blazing the trail in cotton production in Africa. I think Burkina Faso is #1 and Mali is #2. Is it not possible to work with any of these neighbors of ours, perhaps form an exchange program between our farmers and theirs in a bid to increase experiences and draw inspiration from their successes?
Yes, there is this plan by Monsanto, that is the parent company of Mehako, the seed producer. And there is going to be an exchange program between Mehako of India and Nigeria, and collaboration with the Indian embassy here in Nigeria. If not because of this COVID-19, the program would have started last year. But this COVID slowed down the program. And we hope this year, God's willing, we will commence. The Indian government is ready to sponsor as many as Nigerians that have keen interest, and including government officials, to go to India to see things and also to learn and practice.
Okay, you talked about how popular cotton is, especially in some of the countries you mentioned, and why it is that so. You mentioned specifically that our cotton is hand-picked, and that gives it an edge over that. Yes, it gives it that edge. Can you take me very quickly through the procedural, process for processing of cotton? Is that possible very quickly, so we just get an idea?
The cotton is picked from the farm.
Okay.
Conveyed to the ginnery.
Okay.
And the ginners process.
Yes, how is that done?
Gin the cotton, separate the cotton from the cotton seed and lint.
Okay.
Lint is the one that is baled together and put in a 230 kg, and then the seed is pushed to the oil mills for crushing. And after crushing, you get the oil, which is edible, and the cake is used for animal feed. So nothing is wasted in
nothing,
cotton.
Absolutely nothing.
Absolutely nothing.
That's fantastic to know. I'd like your thoughts, and very quickly too, on how consistency in government action and policy can boost the will of the farmer in making the industry perhaps bigger than the oil industry, given the advantages inherent in cotton, textile, and garment production line.
Yes, as I said, that is the intention of the central bank governor. He has a lot of zeal in trying to boost the cotton of the production of this important crop, which today, as I'm talking to you, may be the only crop, agricultural crop, that gives the farmer higher income.
Really?
Yeah.
That's a fact?
Of course it is.
Ahead of rice, ahead of cashew, ahead of cassava?
Anything you can think of is today, cotton surpasses it. With good management, if a farmer is able to get up to 5 tons per hectare, he gets a minimum of 1 million naira.
That's actually something interesting, and it brings me to my next question, because now I have officially met an elderly cotton farmer, yourself and producer. Last week I met with a middle-aged gentleman, but I am yet to meet a relatively young adult, in this business. Is it that this industry, given what you've just said now about being very attractive, but it doesn't seem to be attractive enough for young entrepreneurs?
Well, as I told you before, the advent of this new variety of seed, the farmers have been losing money and have been having problems with management. Now, the company Mihako, an Indian company, have a lot of passion in trying to educate the farmer on how to produce, how to manage his farm, so that he can actually get the level where we need to get. So the experience this year has shown, from last year, also about 2 years ago, has shown that this potential is achievable.
I do agree with you, and of course we are all getting an idea of just how important this sector or industry rather can be to us as a nation. I actually wanted to know why why a young man or a young lady finds it still difficult to get into cotton production in Nigeria. I wonder if it's because it's a perhaps it's a capital intensive venture, or if they consider it, I don't know, like an old people's business. That was actually my question. But it's been quite fascinating and interesting getting your views on this subject matter. I had, like I said, a very interesting conversation with the president of your national body, and I've also gotten your view, so it makes it a two-part conversation for us, and it's a good one. I want to thank you so much for coming on Insight. Salman Abdullahi, farmer, producer and processor. Of course, he's also a member of the umbrella body of cotton producers in Nigeria. Thank you so much for coming on Insight, sir.
Thank you very much. I appreciate meeting you.
All right, then I'll defer to Elizabeth Omorui to host the next segment of our conversation. She will be questioning efforts to ensure the preservation of cultural national assets.
In 1979, the federal government of Nigeria, with Decree 77 of 1979, established the National Commission for Museums and Monuments as a replacement for the Federal Antiquities Department to manage the collection, documentation, conservation, and presentation of the national cultural properties to the public for the purposes of education, enlightenment, and entertainment. This decree has now been replaced by NCMM Act Cap 242 of the Law of Federal Republic of Nigeria 1990. Consequently, upon the impact of Nigeria's civil war, the federal government, in its quest for lasting unity in the country, created museums for national unity to serve as veritable instrument of cultural education through which peace and understanding among the various Nigerian nationalities would be achieved. How far has the National Museums fared in carrying out its objectives towards national unity and tolerance? My guest, Professor Abba Isa Tijani, Director General, National Commission for Museums and Monuments, will enlighten us. Sir, it's nice to have you on Insights.
Thank you very much. It's good to have me.
All right, I would like to start with you educating us on the functions of the museum as it drives our history.
Well, museums generally in any country is a tool for national unity and national development. It is an institution vested with promoting our culture, our tradition, and our heritage. And through the establishment of museums, we are giving our people the opportunity to go and appreciate the wealth of our culture, and also to understand the cultures of others within the country. And through that, we can tolerate the cultures of others and be united. Basically, that is the major function of any museum in the world.
All right. African arts seem to be very attractive to the Western world, and looks like the benefits are enormous. So what are your thoughts about this?
Well, our tradition, our culture, particularly through the production of artifacts, is a world recognized. That is why we have a lot of artifacts that had certain features and markings that exemplify the culture and tradition of the people. And our artifacts are so much respected that they have been taken out of the country, and they have so much value attached to our artifacts because of the way, the sophistication in which these artifacts are being produced, which surpassed that of what is obtainable in countries abroad. Because of our technology and the development, yet our people produce such remarkable pieces of art. It's something that is really being respected by people across the world.
Across the world. You know, when we talk about African arts anywhere in the world, Festac 77 is mentioned. Yes. This festival sold the African culture and arts to the world. What efforts have been made to recover artifacts abroad?
Well, Festac 77 was an opportunity for Africans to display the richness of our culture, and that was a very successful one. And we've not had such kind of festival since then. And after that festival, of course, even before, we had our artifacts actually taken out of the country illegally. One thing that is really in our mind was the Benin punitive expedition of 1897. That was a very unfortunate one, where the Benin Kingdom was invaded and looted. All the artifacts were taken out of the country, and now you find them in so many museums and also in private collections across the world. And in the 70s, in 1970, I think the then ECPO EO made an attempt to bring up this issue of repatriation, but it wasn't successful. Now there is a growing actually zeal among communities in Nigeria, but also abroad, that these artifacts that are taken out of the country illegally should be repatriated to their countries of origin. And this is an opportunity for us to get our artifacts back. We have different fora where we are establishing communication, contact with our partners abroad in order to get our objects repatriated. We have recent now going on actually the Benin Dialogue Group, which is a group where museums across Europe and now in the United States that are coming on board to discuss issues of repatriation, so that the objects will be returned back to our country. And within that Benin Dialogue Group, we are also going to sponsor the establishment of a new museum in Benin City, where it's co-funded by the museums abroad, the Edo State government, and the Palace of the Benin, and together with the National Commission for Museums and Monuments. And this is because there is a lot of concern raised by the museum institutions abroad where these artifacts are being held, and also by citizens in Europe, where if these objects come back to Nigeria, how secured are they? What about the environment? The museums we have presently in Nigeria is not up to the standard that we can secure these objects. So because of this concern, there is this plan now to establish this new museum to host these artifacts when they come back to our country.
Before I take you on the significance of these works, just recently it went viral on the news that a particular British university is willing to return one of the knocks.
Well, the University of Aberdeen Museum actually have formally agreed to return a Benin bronze head back to Nigeria. We are in contact and we have signed the necessary papers, and this artifact will come back. This is an opportunity also for other museums to come out boldly and said publicly that they are now going to return all the artifacts that have been taken out illegally in their possession back to Nigeria. And even Germany, for example, has formally announced that objects in Germany will be returned to Nigeria. And I recently met a delegate from Germany, and we have all agreed, and even together with the Edo State Governor and the Palace of the Oba of Benin, that these objects will be repatriated to Nigeria. So we are making arrangements for that effect.
So there's so much hope. Yes. All right, are we truly ascribing enough significance to these artifacts?
Well, you see, the problem we have in Nigeria is that we are the producers of these artifacts, and suddenly these artifacts disappeared, most of them, and the attachment to these objects have not been established properly in this generation, because the artifacts are not there, some of them.
Okay.
So, and our museums across the country, you know, are not up to the standard that we can portray, you know, and communicate to our communities that these are the cultural heritage, the rich heritage we have. And as such, we are making efforts actually to also partner with the private sector so that we don't only depend on the national funding, national federal government funding, because the issues are all actually within the issue of funding. So once we get proper funding, we'll establish our museums in a way that we'll be able to reach out to every individual in the communities, and they'll be proud to visit a museum that is of a standard.
Okay. Now, culturally, let's talk about our works in terms of promoting our culture. Are we doing enough? Are parents doing enough? Are teachers, educational institutions doing enough in passing our values to the next generation through our works?
That is the major problem we have in our Nigerian society today. We are really lacking behind in terms of exemplifying our culture, in terms of promoting our culture. It's an issue because the way in which actually we also portray our identity, because there's so much Western infiltration that we hardly recognize the richness of our culture. And that is one of the issues, because museums today are not actually living up to expectation in terms of creating this awareness so that our youth will be able to see and understand our culture. And we have the whole concept of the establishment of this National Commission for Museums and Monuments is to reach out to all the communities across the country. That's why we have national museums in every state. And through this, you will be able to now display the representative artifacts and heritage of every community, every part of Nigeria, so that Nigerians will be able to see the cultures and traditions of other parts of the country. And we are yet to fulfill that because of lack of funding, but we are doing our best now.
Okay. In making the museums attractive to tourists, what do we need to do? How do we make them competitive in the markets?
Well, of course, today, if you travel, either as a tourist or you travel on a business trip abroad, many people actually visit museums.
Okay.
And you find that when you visit such museums, you are in an environment that is welcoming, in an environment that actually tries to portray these artifacts. But the question is, the way these artifacts are actually exhibited, particularly of African origin, are not done in a way that, you know, an African going to Europe will understand these artifacts are actually the context of their display and how they are being portrayed does not actually relate in this way. But in our country, if we can, you know, upgrade our museums to the standard that can be found anywhere in the world, then I think our exhibitions will be in a way that Our people will be attracted to museums. They will be able to go and understand their culture and their tradition, their identity, where they come from. And the best place to do it is here in Nigeria, where the artifacts are produced. The institution of a museum is not well actually publicized. A lot of people think that it's a museum is a place where you just go and see artifacts and come out. No, it's a place where you go and understand your identity, your culture, your tradition, and then get attached to it. And that is lacking actually, because the museum environment is a place where you will not only see the exhibitions of objects and so on, but it's a place where as a family you will go and spend the whole day with so many entertainments surrounding, our culture. So that is what is lacking, and we will try our best to see that we'll do that.
Okay. My final question is this: how do we facilitate the functions? How do we make people embrace the benefits?
Actually, one of the issues is, for example, in Nigeria, we don't have a national museum in the capital city, Abuja. It surprised you actually to know that we don't have it. So we are trying to see how we can establish a national museum here. And one of our ways of reaching out to communities is through many ways. We have workshops that we organize in schools, actually, as part of their curriculum, as the syllabus of studies. And we also attract school children, both at all levels, to come to museums and understand about our history and culture. There's nowhere you will understand about our Nigerian history other than the museum, because this is where you come and see the objects and touch them and feel them. And once the history is attached to them, you will never forget. So, and then also we reach out to the private sector. Just recently when I visited Bauchi, the mausoleum of our late Prime Minister of Nigeria, late Tafawa Balewa, the condition was really bad. It was terrible. So I had to reach out and interact with the private sector. Then the NDIC came and renovated our gallery, and we are also in collaboration with other banks so that they will be able to come and help us rehabilitate the environment, so that it will be the serenity and the calmness of a mausoleum that is supposed to be will be restored. And also the Bauchi state government said they are going to help as well. So this is how we are reaching out, because there are a lot of people who are interested in our culture, but they are not being contacted. So that's what we are doing, and through this we'll be able to revamp this sector of museums in Nigeria.
Thank you so much. Professor Abba Isa Tijani, Director General, National Commission for Museums and Monuments. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming on Insight.
Thank you.
I'm fascinated with the discourse on national monuments and assets and how much is being done to preserve and celebrate our heritage. Talking about preservation and pushing the frontiers, I'm reminded of an intriguing conversation I had sometime last year with an organizational transformation expert on the future of work and how man and machine are blending to change the times. Let's recall that conversation. Adora Nebo is the CEO Chrysalis Consulting Limited, operating out of Massachusetts, USA. Welcome to Insight, Adora.
Hi, nice to be here.
Yeah, I reckon we should begin with some of the changes we are already seeing in the workplace, considering the way automation technology, for instance, is being used in marketplaces today and its impact. Should we be concerned that human operation is being threatened by redundancy coming from the very exact and precise nature and performance of technologies? I guess we should begin with you telling me what typifies the future workplace.
That's an interesting question. You see, I find it interesting that people are still talking about the workplace of the future. I think the future is already here.
Indeed.
I think that when this future we've been speaking about for the past maybe since 2013, I think that it's already here with us. We can already see the what patterns that typify what we predicted about 5 years ago. So, and this is being driven largely by technology, disruptive technology, smart technology, large data, AI, crowdsourcing, things like that. So you find that a lot of organizations have started responding in different ways. And we can see organizations of today being doing certain things that are not characteristic of organizations of the past. Let me explain that a little further.
Please do.
Now, when you look at businesses today, you find that one of the most typical things is the idea of disruption. Now, disruption by itself simply means sort of an irreverence for existing value chains and existing processes. Okay. So what these organizations do is that they look at human problems and decide to solve it. So when you do that, you then create a solution using the technology that is available to you, irrespective of what was existing before. So organizations, traditional and legacy organizations, are facing disruption from people who are not typical of their industries or the spaces that they've occupied. So we're going to see a lot more of that. We're seeing what everybody likes to call exponential businesses. Yeah. Exponential businesses are businesses like Amazon, Facebook, businesses that use large data, use AI algorithms, crowdsourcing, and technology like that to create more products and more ways of connecting. So what they do is that they build like a large fan base, creating platforms that help people connect with them. They connect directly with human beings and not with other businesses necessarily. And when they do that, they create this opportunity to engage directly with their consumers, who then give them feedback, telling them what they want, and then they create even more businesses. So we see them growing very fast and very quickly. There are predictions that the S&P, 70% of S&P 500 organizations will be, by 2025, are organizations that we've never heard of. Isn't that interesting?
It is indeed. Adora, I'll step in there and I'll say we're going to make these a lot more relatable so people get a better grasp of what we're saying. But it is apparent that technology and general changes in society are both influencing the changes we're seeing today in the workplace, right? I mean, if that is right. And also, these changes are inevitable, as we've said. Create a scenario for us to reflect and drive home the message of how exactly an issue, take climate change now, for example, and how that could easily cause changes in the workplace.
Okay, let me explain something. Let me give you a bit of context, and then I'll do that.
Okay, great.
First of all, I don't think that this is something that has never happened before in the world, right? This is like just another turn of an era. So we've witnessed a lot of industrial revolutions. People say that this is the fourth industrial revolution. So we've seen the first one, which was characterized by mechanization, steam engines, and it brought about a lot of changes because we now had trains and we could move produce from one place to the other a lot easier. And we had the second one, which was characterized by electricity, gas, and automobile. And people think that that was the most important and most impactful because we had cars. And then we had the third one, which was when we had nuclear energy and, of course, the computer, right? Okay. And now we have this industrial revolution, which is characterized by digital technology and the internet. So each time you have a transformation like this, each time the world turns, what happens is that it begins to affect how business is done. Because new changes have happened, such as the speed with which you can get your services and your products to the consumers, such as the channels that you're using, such as the emotional connection to your organization. So once you see work and beginning to change like that, or organizations beginning to change like that, of course, it affects how work is done. Okay. So processes change. Once processes change, you then begin to need new kind of skills. That is how it affects human beings. Okay. You then begin to need new kind of skills, new kinds of talent, new kinds of knowledge in order to meet what's happening in your environment.
I'll put that further in context by creating a scenario like I just asked you to.
Yes, so I'm going there. So, so if you look at organizations today, if you look at organizations such as Amazon, for example, I like to use Amazon because they're using a lot of robotics today. So they have in their warehouses, for example, what human beings used to do, such as stacking and packing and and hauling boxes, are all being done by computers today, right? If you think back in the past, and remember when we used to have a lot of typing pools before computers, right?
Yeah.
You go to a room and you see maybe 80 people in a room, and all of them are typists. Remember what computers did to typing jobs. And if you recall, how organizations decided to deal with the advent of computers was to create computer departments, and train a few people to be able to use the computer. But that didn't last very long, because shortly after, we realized that computers were just tools for getting work done. So everybody now has a personal computer. There's hardly anyone who doesn't know how to use a mobile phone today. So this is how it starts to affect us as human beings and what we do every day at work and at home. I don't know if that kind of explains.
Well, it does. Adora, draw for me a correlation between, because I've heard you talk about transformation, you've talked about disruption. Draw for me a correlation between digital transformation and digital disruption in a workplace, and try to link that to someone like me, and now I could easily become either, what's the word for it, contingent or supplemental labor in a fast-growing organization.
First of all, I don't think that humans are going to be supplemental labor or contingent labor. I think the future of work, which is today, is still about people. I think it's about creativity. I think what's happening is that the kind of competence that is needed is switching, is changing. So it's actually more about what computers can do versus what humans can do, or what technology can do versus what humans can do. So, if you think about the example I just gave you about typists and computers, those typists remain in the workforce. We didn't fire them. What we did was that we upskilled them, or we changed their skills. Right? So what is happening in this shift is that a lot of new skills are going to be learned. Now, how that affects the workforce is that people in the workforce will have, the way we define careers and jobs will change. Careers will now be more focused on your ability to learn really quickly. Because one of the things that typifies the changes that are happening today is the fact that changes happen very, very rapidly. So now what it means is that you need to be able to learn fast. You need to be very creative. You need to have the ability to use your multidimensionalism. Now, what I mean by that is, as a recruiter, right, when you're recruiting, what you do is you basically have a job description, and then the person who's looking for the job will have a CV. Most of the time, people will write their CV to tailor to the kind of job they'd like to apply to. And what the recruiter does is that they look at the CV and they look at the job description and find a match. Increasingly, that's not enough anymore. Increasingly, we need to know more about you. Increasingly, we need to know about your ability to manage stress. We need to know about your philosophies. We need you to bring your whole self to work. So you no longer have a work brain and a home brain. You have a whole brain that you bring to work. Because we need that multidimensionalism, because the kind of problems that we need to solve today are now complex and multidimensional. So we need to know more about you. We need to know that whether you play the guitar, we need to know what you do for fun. That's why recruiters check out your Facebook profile, your Instagram profile, and things like that. This is becoming important because of the rapid changes and the kind of thinking that needs to be in the workplace today. So that's how it affects the human being.
When I hear you making inferences, Adora, when I hear you making inferences such such as in the future workplace, the careers will be built on new skills learned and acquired based on emerging gaps and needs. I wonder if there are jobs already at risk and or likely to be irrelevant, say, in another 5 or 7 years. If there are, give me a hint, Adora, and then go ahead to speak to specific skill sets likely to become most vital and whether they are needed now or in the nearest future.
I like to say this very simply. There's data that says that about 57% of the jobs that exist today are in danger of being automated, right? Are susceptible to automation. And when that happens, those jobs will no longer be relevant. However, the way I like to put it is, think about the job you do. If it is a job that is repetitive, right? If it is a job that I can break down to steps.
Okay.
So the tasks that this job involves can be broken down to step 1, step 2, step 3. It is in danger of being automated. So there are so many jobs like that. Any job that fit into that, and I don't think it's a danger. I just think that it changes the way you see your job.
Okay.
You know, for instance, there are talks about surgeries, for example, being automated, using robots to conduct surgery.
Very true.
Now, if that is happening, it still doesn't replace the emotive work that a doctor does. You see what I mean?
Yeah,
so
indeed.
There's the human bit and there's the and it still doesn't change the work, the creative work that the human would do. It still doesn't change the problem solving work that the human will do. So it changes the way we think about the work we do. It changes how we do our processes, but it doesn't change the role of the human being.
In some quarters, digital transformation is actually seen as euphemism for modernization. And if we're talking about aligning changes in the workplace to optimize existing human capital within specific organizations, how should organizations in Nigeria now begin to adjust to the changes already here and prepare for those coming in terms of like spending and manpower development?
I find this a very interesting question because first of all, I've been privileged to do a lot of transformation work in Nigeria, especially as with regards to the digital transformation that's happening. And one of the first things that struck me was that most organizations were doing what I would call, they were doing digital. They were not being digital. So just like the same mistake we made 10 years ago, 20 years ago when we first encountered computers, was we created computer departments, computer companies, so to speak. But those things quickly faded away because we quickly realized that technology is a tool and not the end result. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
indeed.
Just the same with digital. Digital is a tool and not, it is a language you speak, it's a tool, it's a medium, it's not the end result. It's not the problem, it's not the solution to the problem, and it's not the human being thinking of the solution. So organizations need to become digital, meaning that we need to look at their processes and see how digital technology will make it more efficient, will drive innovation, etc. They need to digitize their people, meaning they need to teach their people how to be digital savvy. They need to create opportunities for their people to interact with technology in a different way. They need to create organizations where ideas thrive.
And that's it on this episode of the program. Do join us same time next week for more on insights. My name is Nnamdi Odipo.
And I'm Elizabeth Omori. Remember, report any suspicious movement to the appropriate authorities. We'll see you next week.